We cover all economy news extensively to keep you informed. We are live to break news as and when they happen across the world. We analyze news using experts in all aspects. Make a date with News Today every Monday to Friday from 3 to 5:30 p.m.
Right, a very warm welcome back. Thank you very much for joining us. We're in Rustenburg today, and this was, of course, the venue for the celebrations for the African National Congress, the ANC celebrating its 104th birthday. And on Saturday, we heard the president of the party deliver the traditional January 8th statement, a tradition which started with the ANC in exile in 1972 with the then President Oliver Tambo. And essentially, this message is about the party's plans for the year ahead. So what we've done today to discuss that January 8th statement and what it means for not just the party, but people across the board in South Africa, we've invited the top 6 leadership officials in the African National Congress to join us and just to break down that conversation for us. And I'd like to introduce them now as we start with the President of the African National Congress, His Excellency, the President of South Africa, President Jacob Zuma. Very warm welcome to you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Next to you, the Deputy President of the African National Congress, as well as the country, His Excellency, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Somebody you might see in the National Assembly as the National Speaker, the National Chairperson, Mayor Baleka Mbete. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to you.
Compliments of the season, and thank you very much.
Yes, Happy New Year and happy birthday to all of you, by the way. Next to you is the Secretary General of the African National Congress, Mr. Gwede Mantashe. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed the conversation.
Next to you, the Deputy Secretary General, Mayor Jesse Duarte. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone, and we hope we'll be able to receive many questions today.
Fantastic. And
It's ready.
We're looking
and
forward to
the
that.
keeper of the pocket of the ANC, the Treasurer General, Dr. Zweli Mkhize. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, compliments, and happy birthday, ANC.
Right. Okay, well, let's get this conversation going. Let me start with you, Mr. President. Some people may not have heard the full message. They may not have, because they rely on Twitter, and there's not enough characters to carry the whole message there. So perhaps, just in essence, what would you say you would most like people to get a sense of in terms of the statement? What was the most important message for you that came through the January 8th statement?
Well, all the elements of the message that were there, they were all important. There wasn't anyone that was more important than the other. There are different kinds of elements. Firstly, we talk about the need for unity, firstly in the organization itself, and also the people of South Africa. It's an important element. Is an important element that the ANC, since its foundation, has emphasized all the time, and we did indicate what the leaders of the time said. One of our leaders who has put it very correctly and very accurately is our former President Mandela, who says, unity is the rock upon which the ANC was founded. He sent that message 1985 when he was in prison to the conference in Kabwe, really emphasizing that issue, and we always do so. But he also dealt with current issues. For an example, the issue of racism that seems to be emerging, but we thought it was important to clarify that South Africa is not a racist country. South Africa is a non-racial country. There are few individuals who must be having that problem. And that's how we should talk about it. We should not exaggerate and begin to make the world believe that South Africa has now suddenly become a racist country. Not at all. Few individuals, and I'm sure even those who made some funny statements, may not be more than 5, really, which tells you where the country is. So we thought it was important to address that issue and also to ask the ANC members and the population to really campaign against such tendencies because they are taking us backward. It was also important to talk about the economy, to say what we are doing about the economy, how the economy is, why do we have difficulties in the economies. And I know that some people think that the economic problems are just here in South Africa. They're a global phenomenon. As you know, in 2008, that's when the whole trouble about economic meltdown began, and the old economies in the world got into more serious problems. It took a number of years before they could begin to come back, and I think only now they are beginning to come back. So the fact that the global economy is now almost one unit, you can't have other countries being affected, one country not being affected. So all countries are affected. They may differ in degrees. So it was important to deal with that. The issue was, what then are we doing as a country, as a government? I think we had to put those kind of issues. Also to say, what is good to us is that we have a plan, a clear plan what we are doing. All 3 tiers of government and, of course, the entire society, because we have indeed embraced the National Development Plan. So we know where we are going. It's a question of how we do this. Also important to invite the private sector to participate and to invest. Absolutely important for us to do so. I think we also took advantage of the statement, as it is always, to give direction to our members, to the organization, what we need to do, what are the kind of things that we always do but we must continue doing. But also said this year, 2016, is the year of local government elections, and therefore remind people that they must exercise their right to vote. That was fought for, but also that, of course, people must vote the ANC, because the ANC is the organization that has correct policies. It has the future of this country in its hand. It was always from the beginning up to now. That therefore, for us to make quicker process and progress, rather, we should therefore vote this wonderful organization. And of course, you'll agree that the policies of the ANC and programs are not a secret. Everybody knows. That's why people can stand and criticize. I'm not trying to talk about other parties. I don't want to say other parties are what. That's not my business. But the ANC always puts across its policies, invites the citizens of this country to contribute. When we go, for an example, for our policy conference, we publish our documents so that people could comment. And that's why people comment freely about the ANC. So that's a kind of thing we're pushing forward. And we're saying the problems that we have, it's wrong to say are the problems because today people are inefficient, there is no leadership, as other people say. We are dealing with historic problems. If you talk about poverty, inequality, unemployment, the foundation of it is the land that was taken from the people, and they were made poor. And that is the beginning of a problem. And that's why we raise the issue of land, that we still have to look into that issue. What can we do? Because without solving it properly and fundamentally, these 3 things will never go away. So these are matters that the country must discuss. Instead of discussing small issues, we must discuss these big issues. How do we deal with poverty? How did poverty come into this country? We know where it came from. Let us therefore deal with that fundamental issue properly. We have tried to deal with it to some degree, but we still have to do more in order to ensure that our people indeed experience the life changing to a better life. So those are the issues that we tried to outline, and there are more other issues that we dealt with. These are just a few that I thought I should highlight.
All right, and what we'll do, we'll unpack a lot of these issues during the course of this conversation. Deputy President, if I can turn to you, because you're a man who's worn both hats, both as business and both as a person who has led government. So you understand the relationship between the two, and I know in the January 8th statement that came through quite a bit, that we need to find a new cooperation, a new coming together. What would you say is the essence of that? What do we need to do different to get this relationship right?
I think, as always, the January 8th statement identified a whole number of issues which speak to all sectors of South African society. And if anyone were to look at it closely, you'll find that there is something that addresses the issues that they are dealing with, be they students, be they the private sector, the NGO sector.
All right, Deputy President, if I could just ask you to pause for a second, because we're having a little bit of a technical issue with your microphone. We'll come back to you in a short while, but perhaps I can move perhaps to Secretary General, National Chairperson actually. Again, in the January 8th statement, another theme that came through is that all South Africans must come together, work together to work on this national project and build a better South Africa. One of the challenges that we have as people from the outside looking in, we tune into Parliament and we see this adversarial battles going on in Parliament. How do we, I don't know whether change the way we look at it, or does it represent the way we're operating in South Africa, that it's us versus them? How do we change that narrative?
I think a major issue that comes through the statement of the African National Congress on the occasion of its 104th birthday is the question of unity. Uniting South Africans, be it across color lines, across the political divide, across cultural, religious, and other areas of life in our society, can never be overemphasized. And that is something that must also always be borne in mind by the people's representatives, the members of Parliament. And I want to speak for parliamentarians to say, actually, members of Parliament have more in common, work together much more positively, and in fact, create friendships, even across political party lines, a lot more than society realizes. Perhaps part of the challenge is that members of Parliament work together in smaller entities, in portfolio committees. Perhaps not all the time do we have the cameras focusing on how they interact together and work constructively in structures where they actually share the responsibility to make their national institution work on behalf of the people of South Africa. So the few bright moments of drama and so on are just that, really. It does not signify a major inability of parliamentarians to work together. You will be very surprised how, from the beginning in 1994, we learned that there's a lot more drama that gets expressed and projected than the reality of enmity and people being unable to work as colleagues. People would create drama. I remember way back when there was the first Minister of Health, and members of the opposition, there were some that had carved for themselves this little niche of attacking the minister. And they would walk across and go to the minister and say, actually, minister, this country has not had a better minister of health. But When you look at the drama, you believe that, wow, there's so much hatred, but it's not like that. So I think we need to look closer. We need to look beyond the drama.
Okay, we'll chat about the social cohesion and other issues. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue with this conversation, and we'll hear from the other members of the Top Six. So stay with us, and don't forget, Morning Live SABC is our Twitter handle where you can start filing your questions, and we'll put them through to our panel. Stay with us.
Health Talk, your show on health practice.
The people being empowered with knowledge so that they can change their behavior and reduce their risk of being sick.
How serious is stress at work?
If we don't address workplace stress, that negative stress, then it can lead to burnout and it can lead to depression.
How does absentees affect companies?
The one that's really problematic for employers is the one that is unscheduled.
How can companies organize their wellness program?
Health promotion mustn't just be a one-size-fits-all type of approach. It must be customized based on understanding of the unique needs of that particular organization.
For health tips that will help you to adopt healthy living with Dr. Sello Mutawung on Health Talk every Saturday.
Are you saying the king must go to jail? You are not royal blood, therefore you are going to serve time on behalf of the king. Where does the public protector stand on this matter? Are you with the marches, for the marches, against the march? If this is your ancestor, it is very much his ancestor as well, because this is the cradle of humankind. Is there God somewhere in your science? Drinking the blood of a person with albinism gives extra magical powers. A man of the cloth is involved here because it would mean that somehow religion is being brought into this part of the myth. What do you say to me?
Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News Channel.
Welcome back, everybody. Broadcasting this morning from the Northwest Province. That's where the centre of attention has been for this past weekend, where we saw the birthday celebrations and the anniversary of the ANC with the January 8th statement that was read out by our President, Jacob Zuma. He is part of our guest panel this morning, along with the rest of the top six of the ANC, and we look forward to continuing the discussion that is being held there. Let me read a couple of the tweets that are coming through. Remember, you're more than welcome to tweet us here on the programme and send us your views at Morning Live SABC. We can see here couple of negative, couple of positive comments. So I'm going to try and read as many as I can. Truth Sayer saying, under President Zuma, our country's debt has soared. With the establishment of the BRICS Bank, will we borrow more? That's one of the questions perhaps we can ask to the panel. Don Mpo Lefifi writing to us and saying, I love watching ANC leaders in action, but truth be told, who can run this country better than them? No one as yet. They are trying. That's what Don has to say here on the program. The Socializer, that's another Twitter account saying, what are you going to do about the currency and the rand? That's one of the questions that I imagine we're going to be asking the panel once the discussion gets underway rather briskly. So please do stay tuned for that and find out a little bit more about that. Again, another question, Sandile asking, do you still have bucket toilet systems there, or can that be sorted out? So there are many, many, many questions that are going to be asked, and I hope that we'll have the opportunity to do that from the Johannesburg studio as I throw you back to the Northwest, where Peter is hosting our panel discussion for us. Peter, once again, over to you.
Right, a very warm welcome back. If you've just joined us, we're in Rustenburg today, and this is the Monday after a weekend that saw lots of celebrations here in Rustenburg as the African National Congress celebrated its 104th birthday, making it the oldest political movement on the continent, and certainly one of the oldest in the world. 104, still going strong and representing the majority of South Africans. And to talk to us about the January 8th statement that was delivered by the President over the weekend, we've got the ANC's top 6 with us today. And just before the break, we heard from 3 of them, but we return now to the Deputy President just to get another take on, in the January 8th statement, a lot was said about a new cooperation that's required to build this country, particularly relationships between business and labor. Deputy President, if you could share your thoughts.
Well, as I was saying, the January 8th statement always identifies areas where it addresses issues that are of concern to various sectors of society. And the one that was particularly outstanding for me was the issue of the social compact. The President highlighted, the NEC highlighted that we need to have a social compact that will be able to help us to address the various challenges that the country faces. And we were able to reflect back and said that we have used this mechanism in the past of crafting social compacts. The NDP, the National Development Plan, is in many ways also a social compact because it's a plan that was supported by up to 95% of the population of our country. So it sets out Vision 2030. And that is a compact that our people have amongst themselves to move South Africa forward. So what is now needed is that we must now drill deeper down and get various sectors of society, the key role players, to craft social compacts around economic issues, around even the issue of racism does require that. But the President also identified another major area where we need a social compact, and that is addressing issues of inequality, poverty, and particularly around the national minimum wage, which is now being discussed, as he said in the January 8th statement. That too is going to be a major issue that will require a social compact. So for me, that was the key driver, and that is what we would like all South Africans to focus on, to say that amongst all the challenges we face, we do have an instrument that we can use to address the challenges that we face.
Okay, thank you very much, Deputy President. SG, I guess as Secretary General, you're kind of the Chief Operations Officer for the ANC. So one of the things that came through the January 8th statement was making sure you rid the party of divisive tendencies, factionalism, careerism, gatekeeping, slate politics. Because if you don't, as the ruling party, I guess this affects the work that you're trying to do to build this country. How are you going to deal with these particular issues?
The question of dealing with what we call foreign tendencies to the ANC is political consciousness and awareness. many people take that as a very easy exercise. What people never appreciate is the fact that the ANC has a long history. An ANC that operates under condition of illegality is an organization that is driven by commitment. Everybody who joined the ANC under those conditions was committed, because joining the ANC was inviting prison, death, persecution of all forms. All of a sudden, the ANC is operating under condition of legality, and people join this not necessarily because they are committed, because they think that creates opportunities. And it is what we should be talking about all the time in the ANC, to remind people that we are there to serve. When you say the ANC leads society, it is not leading itself, it's not leading its members, it's leading society. Therefore, the unit of the ANC, the commitment of its cadres is quite important. That's why in the January 8th statement, there is a section that gives us anniversaries. That section is very important because it is actually capturing in very brief the journey that has been traveled over many years, 104 years. And we'll refer to 95 years of the Communist Party, we'll refer to 25 years of the UDF agreeing to subject itself to the leadership of the ANC. We will talk about 55 years of Mkondo Wesizwe. That history, because there's a narrative in South Africa that says history is not important. History is important because history is summarizing the journey you have traveled, and that's why it becomes important for us to refer to that section to have a sense of how far we've gone, where do we come from, so that we can be certain of where we want to go to. Lastly, it is also important for an ANC that is united to play its role in the international arena. That's why when we, in the statement, we'll raise the Western Saharan question, which is the only occupied part of Africa. We'll also raise the question of the Palestinian question, and the ANC is expected to play quite an important role in finding the solution to those conflicts. And if we don't unite ourselves, recommit ourselves, we'll become irrelevant in the national arena. So that January 8th statement is quite rich. People must take time to read it and discuss it. And there's an invitation in that statement that invites the intelligentsia to come and play a constructive role and engage, not just stand on the sideline and be critical. It must criticize but come and make a contribution of finding the solutions.
Okay, thank you very much, SG. Deputy SG, another call in the January 8th statement is for all sectors of society to join hands and contribute to building our nation, and poverty, inequality, unemployment comes up. I was listening to the radio the other day, and I heard a white woman phone from Cape Town, and she says, you know what, I'm not wealthy, but I live a modest life, but it really hurts me to see the inequality in the country. And she says, what do I do? How can I help? And there seems to be a lot of people that are willing, but just don't know what to do. Is paying taxes enough?
I think it also goes to being an active citizen in the area where you live, working within your own community, volunteering. Building a nation is not an event. And, you know, we do very well with events. 1995, we cohere as a nation. Flag flies, everybody's happy. We cohere. 2010, we march behind the country's flag. Immediately thereafter, some of us demand separate amenities on beaches in a country where the demography is what it is. A majority of us are black in this country. So it is not so much about raising issues of myself as a black, white, or any other type of person. It is about taking a decision consciously to be part of a nation-building process, to understand that you've got to move forward, to accept that when you recognize the inequality, the poverty, the unemployment, South Africans must reach out to other South Africans and begin to ask, not to ask only what can I do, and that's it. It's like an empty sentence, but to offer, what have you to offer that will assist this country in undermining this enormous level of unemployment that we have? And in this regard, we are asking for a partnership of all sectors of society. We can't pretend any longer that we've ingrained in our psyche this reality. And as the President said, a few individuals who make crazy statements is not the South African nation. But the South African nation itself is diverse, and we should not lament, but we should look for solutions locally. People need to engage with local government. We find that only certain parts of our community directly engage with local government. Others just pay electricity bills, they pay their rates and taxes and go back home. And yet there is enormous poverty in the street where they live. Let's reach out again. Let's become active citizens. I think that would help a great deal for us to undermine equality, for us to deal and eradicate poverty, and we may even be able to create more jobs right there where we live.
Okay. Just before the break, Treasurer General, if I could ask you, because this January 8th statement is an NEC statement, isn't it? It's a group, it's a collective. One of the themes that came through is the speed of land reform. This will be radically accelerated. What is this going to entail? Do we have a timeline, and at what point will we be able to say this is what we've done?
Well, I think the President has already alluded to the issue, that the basis of poverty of our people arises from the problem of land dispossession. And I think you would recall in the past, January 8th, the issue, even State of the Nation address, the issue of the slowness of the speed of land reform has been cited. And amongst it was the question of the willing buyer, willing seller. That has been the approach that was used. And of course, later it was felt that we need to start focusing on the approach that takes the approach of just and equitable settlement for the land. And I think that what has been discussed about reopening the issue of land claim to beyond 1913, and also the fact that there are lots of communities who have got, challenges that they would have put up the applications, but there's not been much resolution. And also the fact that there's a lot that needs to be done in investing on the communities to be able to utilize the land as their first asset and therefore build on that, to build on rural development, and also to build on the agriculture potential that the country has. So our view is more of the fact that a lot more needs to be done to accelerate land as a basis of economic empowerment. And that issue is always going to arise because the struggle really was based on the issue of land dispossession. So the discussions we have are about what other formulas we need to look into. There's been discussions, for example, from the Land Affairs Department talking about how the farmers could begin to relook at sharing some of the land that they have with some of their farm workers and empowering them in the process. And so I think we're looking for more solution. I think the approach to take for most South Africans is not to feel that there is now a problem now that the issue is being continuously raised, but that to say what solutions can they bring on board. One of the judges raised the question that we have not even, for example, utilized the court provisions on resolving the land issues. We still have a long way to go. So I think we need to be open to a lot of possibilities of dealing with the land issue.
All right, okay. On that note, we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, there's a lot more to discuss, but we're going to start getting questions from you at home via Twitter and also our audience here. Education, local government elections, you name it. There's still quite a lot to unpack. So stay with us for that conversation.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
Born with malformation of the limbs, David lives his life to the fullest.
I got this. Let me try my own. Got on the bed, then start playing soccer in the streets, then like, do this.
He can play soccer, he reads and writes, he is even able to swim, a role model to his peers.
Look at the scripture. It doesn't say I'm a conqueror, it says I'm more than a conqueror.
Join your host, Buleng Mulebati, on Bupilong every Friday at 17:30.
Media Monitor, your weekly media news review program.
It was squashed some few months back, but obviously this is something that is going to hang around Pravin until it is actually dealt with. If he didn't know, then he wasn't doing his job.
In it, she described how the man's hair was frozen, although the man has no hair.
Is anybody volunteering to go to jail for him? That is not how the law works.
This particular matter makes us really look like a serious banana republic.
Unpacking headlines and giving analysis on topical issues. Sundays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News channel.
Africa's tech scene is constantly coming up with innovative ways to answer some of the continent's problems.
We source content from social media, from our mobile apps, from our website.
And as people move from phone calls to data, companies have to switch what they offer.
People expect to get higher speeds, better quality broadband for less.
On Network, we have information on Africa's technology and social media scene. That's Network with Ms. Pumelele Zondi every Sunday at 9 p.m. Central African Time, only on SABC News.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, so many people writing into us and corresponding with us this morning on our TNA as we host the Big Six of the ANC on the program today. The top six, I should say, the Big Six, I'm saying. I hope that's causing a bit of a giggle over there. So let's take a look at some of the issues that have really been coming up. And I have to tell you, I think the biggest one, and particularly with looking at what happened to the currency overnight, is the rand. We need to get to the bottom of the rand, and that's one of the questions that we're hoping the panel will discuss this morning, is the currency last night. In fact, it just seems, the situation seems to get worse, because I keep reading up on it, and the reality is that apparently it hit 17 rand and 99 cents against the dollar at midnight, and it has obviously recovered since then. It's sitting at around about 16.70 against the dollar. So please, can we get some comfort at a time like this when things are not looking good at all for the currency? That's one of the questions that we'd love to pose to the panel. Second question, I've got three for you, Peter, is the issue of our Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa not attending the dinner on Friday evening. I know I saw a report in a newspaper clarifying why he wasn't there, that his plane was delayed in Sudan, but with regard to some technical faults. But perhaps we can address that once again for some of the viewers out there that are concerned they didn't see him there. And then the final question, our third question coming from the studio, is the political school that apparently that we've been reading about is going to be opening up for the SADC region. Can you give us a bit more detail about this? How's it going to be run and our involvement in that as well? All right, those three questions coming from our Joburg studio. Peter, over to you.
Leanne, thank you very much indeed. And Leanne has been collecting some of the questions from our audience via Twitter, and she's posed some questions. And the one that seems to be causing most consultation is the issue of the rand. Apparently, overnight we went beyond 17 rand to the dollar, and they're asking some I don't know, make them feel better. What can you tell? You know why? Because we're not sponsored by Transnet. I mean, by Eskom.
Let's try and get that audio sorted out once again. Looked like there was just a quick drop in transmission, but we're hoping that things are better now and that we'll be able to get back to them and answer those very, very pertinent questions that everybody is asking at the moment. And I think our currency really is something that we need to address with a very, very, very firm hand this year. In fact, it was actually quite amusing reading some of the economists' predictions, saying that they saw the currency heading towards 19 or 20 rand by the end of 2016. But here we sit at the very beginning of 2016, and we're already almost hitting the level of 18 rand. So I can only imagine that a lot of revisions are going to be taking place today as economists and everybody else gets back to work. So let's just hope we get that answer once everything comes right on that side there where our TNA is taking place. Well, the reason we're doing the TNA with the top 6 of the ANC is because it was the anniversary of the ANC, and 104 years old. And of course, there's always that January 8 statement that many people look forward to when our president addresses the nation. Well, one person who was really looking forward to it was an ANC supporter who actually managed to breach security just to get a chance to greet our president, Jacob Zuma, at the Royal Bafokeng Stadium on Saturday as he arrived to deliver the January 8 statement. Our cameras were there to actually pick it all up. So take a look and see what happened. Is that not one of the happiest guys you've ever seen? Apparently his name is Colin, and he got through to, you know when it looked like people were do you remember the old days of the 1960s where you saw people watching the Beatles and screaming and shouting because they were such fans? Well, that's what this guy reminded me of when he got to hug our president, Jacob Zuma. Let's cross over to them again. I'm not sure if the panel managed to see that footage. If not, we'll try and show it a little bit later on. But a very, very happy fan there of the ANC and our president. Peter, let's go back to you now.
If I'd seen him, I would have.
Leanne, thank you very much indeed. Welcome back. We're in Rustenburg, and we're busy chatting about the January 8th statement that was delivered at the weekend. And you saw some of the audience got very excited. One man jumped the fence to try and greet you, Mr. President. Your thoughts? What happened?
Well, unfortunately, I was speaking. I did not look at the man as to who he was to identify. He's actually a friend of mine from Gauteng. In whatever public meeting I am, he comes. He greets. He comes to me. He doesn't worry about protocol. He comes to me. As it happened yesterday, because I stopped him in the field. When I was leaving, he caught up with me. And outside, they were also holding him and pushing him. I realized him, so I said, please leave the man. He's my friend. So he came, he hugged me, he was happy. I gave him the money for drink, and then he was happy. He's a great friend of mine.
Fantastic. Oh, gosh. All right. So, Deputy President, just before we broke, the rand seems to be... I mean, I think I woke up this morning, I was watching the business channels, and the Chinese currency is in trouble as well. And I guess this is part of the contribution. A lot of people thought and pointed to the removal of the finance minister as the primary cause for the shift of the rand. I just want you to perhaps just put it into context for us. What is happening, and should we be fearful? I mean, it's gone beyond 17 overnight. It has recovered back down to around 16.70 at the moment.
Well, I think we should all realize that South Africa is part of the global economy. And because we are key players in the global economy, we are going to be susceptible to what happens in the global economy generally. And we should not panic. We're not the only country in the world, as the President said, that is facing economic challenges. China, the second largest economy in the world, is facing its own challenges, and serious challenges for that matter. And another big economy is Brazil. Their currency has also been under a lot of pressure. So many currencies, particularly within our comparator countries, are under tremendous pressure right now with all the global movements. And in our case, clearly, it's issues such as the balance of payments. And we are importing a lot more than what we are exporting, and that has a downward pressure on our currency. But if you were to talk to people who are exporting, they will tell you that they're getting more from what they're exporting, because that in many ways makes them happy. We've been here before. We should never forget that South Africa has been where we are now, and even a lot worse. There was a time when the rand to the pound was about 24, 26 even, but we did recover. And the function of the economies is that they go up and down, and currencies as well. The key question is, what are we doing? Are we standing still or doing nothing? The President is going to be having a meeting with the business community in a short while from now, and we're going to be sitting down with the business community to discuss precisely some of the measures we can take. Some people ascribe it to a level of uncertainty. The government has done a lot to instill certainty in economic policy, in economic stability. So there are a number of measures that we are taking, that we are going to continue taking. I go back to the point I made earlier, the compact building process. This is a time where we require all South Africans to work together. This is our collective economy. It's not the economy of the ANC or the government alone. It is our collective economy, and therefore we need to be working together to see what needs to be done to shore up our currency, to make sure that we export more, to make sure that we don't finally get to a point where the devaluation of the rand leads to price increases for foodstuffs and many other things that are essentials for the population of our country. So we are doing a lot to address this issue.
Okay, one issue which, I don't know, for some reason started trending on Twitter, and the media also started looking for, I guess, sinister connotations to this. But you're on a public platform now. Let's deal with it once and for all. You're not being at the dinner. Is there love between you and the President?
There's a lot of love between me and the President. Yes. Absolutely. I wasn't at the dinner because I had been sent by the President to South Sudan. The South Sudanese parties were getting together and celebrating the reaching of an agreement. So our plane had a technical problem. The Air Force plane, we went to the plane. The Vice President of South Sudan was bidding me farewell. We got into the plane couldn't start. So in the end, we then had to resort to a commercial flight. We had to wait for a flight from Ethiopia, Kenya. The Kenyan Airways brought us to Nairobi. Thereafter, we came back home. We arrived back home at 2 o'clock in the morning. And lo and behold, the dinner had just finished. And I was very hungry, and I had to apologize to the TG.
Right.
So there was nothing sinister about me not being at the dinner.
We didn't complain, you had already paid for it.
Okay.
Just a comment on the play.
Yeah.
I hope South Africans realize why, if you are a deputy president, you need a plane that cannot stop anywhere. And I'm making this point because when those who are supposed to buy planes in order to make it easy for us to work, they have problems. They politicize it. But that's a direct result. Okay. The plane is old, it couldn't just start, and then it makes the deputy president not to appear in the dinner, and they start saying there's a problem. So the fleet does need to be renewed. Okay. I'm just making the point because it is important. Secondly, on the one of the rand, I think it should not, the deputy president is correct, should not be made the business of government only. All of us. If the economy is in trouble, we can't do things or do business as usual. For an example, touching on a point which is quite controversial, if I own a company, if the economy is what it is, should I say because my business is in trouble, I retrench workers and do everything? Or should I take into account that there is a problem and my reaction to that problem needs a different kind of an approach? If I am a trade union, if the time for negotiations come and I'm demanding what I'm demanding, should I strain the economy further by really conducting a strike that could go on forever or for a long time? I think we can't do business as usual. We all have to consider that we've got to change the manner in which we handle things, come to some understanding that because we are in difficult period, let us do something. You will recall that the Minister of Finance, not once, they have said we are in trouble, let us tighten the belt, let us cut the fat, etc. It cannot be the government business only to respond in that way. We all need to, so that we are able to cushion the impact of the global meltdown of the economy. I just thought I should add that point.
No, that's fine. SG, another viewer would like to know a little bit more about the political school. Apparently it's going SADC. They want to know a little bit more about that.
Political school.
Yeah.
There are two political schools that we are busy with. Our own political school is going on in terms of political education being rolled out in the provinces. In the NGC report, we gave a detailed report of Gauteng, the Walter Sisulu Academy, Northern Cape, various provinces. What we have not done is to build the institution. The president always talks about this. He says, political school is not the building. It is the content of what we do to educate our people. And the political school is quite important in the sense that in the ANC that is open to everybody now, to convert that quantity to quality will require a number of blows, and the frequency of that of the blows will throw to that quantity to convert it to quality. And the political school is that throwing of blows to the quantity. It's quite important. You would also appreciate the fact that we are working with the liberation movements in the region to also build a regional school for all the liberation movements. It will be based in Tanzania, and we've got the site. We're going to be building it. So it is not only a South African problem, it is a problem that is cutting across liberation movements, that we're now governing parties who are from a particular history. We will have to adjust, and we'll have to educate a number of new members who would not necessarily understand the history and the journey that has been traveled by the liberation movement. So the political school is being rolled out, but we still need to have that school so that our curriculum should be institutionalized.
Okay. All right, let's go to our tables now, and I'm going to take 3 at a time, and we'll start at table number 16, where we'll find Sidiko Rakulote. If you could stand up, ask your question.
Leadership, my question is that when you do your own tools of analysis, do you find a correlation between racism, economic inequality, and the lost pace of land redistribution? Because those who have got economic powers might undermine those who don't have economic powers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. The next question comes from the Small Business Minister, Lindiwe Zulu, table number 4. If the microphone will come to you, if you could stand up, Minister.
She's part of the statement. Shouldn't she be answering questions rather than asking questions?
Yes, Mr. President, after you deliver the statement, most of the questions that have been coming to from the media, one of those questions relates to selection of candidates for local government elections. And they're saying they don't really believe that the ANC's own selection process is going to respect the communities, because the ANC's own process is democratic in itself. So how are we going to make sure that the interest of the communities is taken into consideration? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Minister. And then table 14, Sitle Ngubane.
Thank you, Mr. President. My question is still revolving around media. As in this country, there is a huge lack of patriotism from our media. You take the statements from the ENCA, from Mail and Guardian, all those things show lack of patriotism in the country. How do we ensure that we fast track such things as a media tribunal or control of the media? Because they do as they please, and part of the media is contribution to the divisiveness in the country. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much indeed for those 3 questions. I'm not sure who'd like to comment on those. Yes, Mr. President.
The first question was about racism and economic kind of thing. I don't think you could divorce the issue of economy. It is part of it. And as long as you have poor people and rich people, it means their relations in society is not the same. It assumes a particular posture. But it is worse where it is not just the same people. Because even when they are the same people, of course it is described at times in terms of class, the differences, classes. But when it comes to the color, it does play its own role. Even if you look across the globe, generally, black people are looked down upon. I mean, one of the leading democracies, the United States, up to this day, I think it was early this year or last year, where a man died. The police just strangled him. He said, "I can't breathe." They wouldn't do so. I think the color does play a role. And I think the black Americans have said this for a long time. I think even if you looked at the current president of the United States, the attitude towards him by his own very democratic country does indicate the question of the color to some degree. So it's a problem that you need to deal with all the time. But here, I think it is worse because of our history. And it created a kind of a false super color kind of thing, which the South Africans have agreed and are dealing with it. What is important with us is that we are dealing with it. It's not that we are not dealing with it. What, for an example, has happened from the social media? Because there is now social media, you can no longer just have the government and the media. For the first time, the social media has been dealing with the media, even on the issue of whether the media is patriotic or not. I was very happy to see an interview yesterday where a journalist, I think it was Vuyo, who said, in fact, they say they are objective, but they are not objective in reality. Because that's the case. They also cross the line in terms of how they deal with personal things of people beyond what is required. So there is a problem that we need to deal with. I think when we were saying in the statement, let us all unite, let us all be patriotic, we are actually saying to every citizen, whatever station you occupy, you need to promote this rainbow nation. You need to promote this democracy rather than subvert it. If you have people, it's not just the media only. There is a culture that emerged from our own history that people, for an example, said violence. Because we had a very violent system called apartheid, and it invited the violent reaction. We have never dealt with that issue. Even from 1994, it's a psychological problem that we need to deal with, all of us. So I think it's important for us to appreciate that therefore, as a country, we all have responsibilities. Responsibility is not only with the politicians or with members of parliament or with government. All of us have a responsibility to contribute to make South Africa a good and prosperous and a better place to live in. I've almost touched on two questions.
Okay. Yes.
I want to react
and then
to the correlation. Is there a correlation between things like land dispossession and, say, economic racism? Yes, there is. On the land issue, we often focus on the land only. And when people were dispossessed of their land, it was not only land, it was houses. The people had houses. They had an economic way of supporting their own lives. They had skills that were based on the land. They also had educational dispossession because they were moved to areas that were far and afield and children could no longer go to school. So we need to look at dispossession in a fairly comprehensive way. Now, when the Minister of Land Reform started talking about this issue that the TG spoke about the sharing of land between workers and farm owners, it seemed like he was mad. But in the end, many farmers in the country have started to deal with the issue and are trying to come up with solutions. What it means is that we've got to go beyond just getting the government to buy land from farm owners. We need to look at other methods of land reform, land distribution, so that we deal with it in a partnership way. In the end, it will be ways in which our economy can begin to grow, where we create opportunities to precisely address the issue that was being raised, whether there is a correlation between the two or not. Okay. And those who have land will need to find ways of saying, how do we, in the end, give opportunities to those who do not have land? Because if we do not do so, there could be retribution that could visit all of us. What do we need to do right now is the question.
Okay. National Chairperson?
I wanted to move to the issue that was raised by Minister of Small Businesses in relation to what sounds like skeptical queries in relation to the process of determining candidates for local government. I think the track record of the ANC is there to speak for itself. When mistakes have happened in the ANC, we're not shy to talk about them. We're not shy to actually embark publicly on processes to self-correct. We are saying ANC branches are being instructed to, when they have to select candidates, nominate three comrades, candidates, take them to the community and let it be the community that decides who, in their view, is the best among those. Because those people, when they become councillors at local government level, they are not servicing or serving only members of the ANC. They serve the people. They serve communities. They are going to be dealing with issues of the needs, the everyday challenges and expectations of our people. So we are saying we are going to practice that, and we are telling ANC members, in case they didn't understand, that we are serious about that. People are the people who must tell us what to do, and therefore we are going to listen to the views of communities and be guided by that as we finalize the issues of candidates.
Okay. Deputy SC?
No, I just wanted to add a slight to that. This is the year of people's power. We chose that theme. And if we're really true to that theme, we will accept and understand that we cannot choose our friends to be councillors. It has to be a choice of a person that has the confidence and the trust of the community. And even if the branch chair wants to be the councillor and the community has a question about that, we must respect that. So it's not an automatic, you're going to be the councillor if you're the chairperson of the branch. I think we need to go that way.
Okay. SG, the media came up quite a bit, and I'm just wondering, is it the role of the media to be patriotic? Is it their job? When you look around the world, you've got a press that goes mad. I mean, Fox News berates the president every single day. In the UK, same story. Some papers are pro-party, anti-party. Is it that we're not ready because of the stage that we are in our development, or how do you see the media's role?
The mistake we're committing in South Africa is to use a term neutral when we describe the media. And in South Africa, neutrality and independence is being anti-ANC. Now, what we should be moving to is to understand the media houses. Where do they stand? What I like about the British media is that if you buy a particular newspaper, you know that it is supporting conservatives. And if you buy a particular newspaper, it supports Labour. There's no confusion. In South Africa, this neutrality is very artificial. I think in the last election, Mail and Guardian went out and said, please don't vote ANC. At least it was honest, you see, that it was anti-ANC. And to me, and when the new age says we'll support the government and so forth and so forth, it gets criticized by all the media houses. You are not independent. You are pro-ANC. Newspapers must begin to position themselves such that we understand if you read newspaper X, this is the orientation. It is not a praise singer of the ANC, but it is wanting to be constructive in reporting about government and its work. But it's not just a praise singer, it is critical. And if the media does that, it is patriotic. To us is that the media must not talk the country down. It must sell the country and it must tell the story of the country while criticizing the mistakes that are committed. If we can move towards that direction, we'll have a more patriotic media. The patriotic nature of the media is not just praising and polishing the stories. It's about reporting objectively and not see positive news as not newsworthy. Positive news must be newsworthy. When there are things negative, they must be reported. And that is, to me, patriotic. And the media tribunal is an issue that we're raising because of the ineffective way of self-regulation. They call it co-regulation now. But I can tell you that our experience is that self-regulation in the media does not work.
Okay.
It does not work. It is pro-media. It is said by them. You have the press council. It is said. You know, we had a case with the Press Council, and before they issue a judgment, the chairperson of the Press Council addresses a public meeting, and it is covered by the media very hard on the ANC, on the media tribunal. But the following day, he must give judgment on an ANC case. That does not work. That's why the question of the media tribunal is an issue that must be opened and be debated.
Okay, a very final word before we move on.
No, I think just further on, you see, some of the things are completely inexplicable. You expect that the media would operate on the basis of professionalism, but when there was a change in the ownership of the independent newspapers, you had a riot from the editors. They went all out to say this an ANC, this and so on and so on, which is really very strange because you expect that whoever owns the newspaper is a business person, and then thereafter those must stick to professional, ethical approach to the editorial policy. And that was not the issue. We had occasion to raise these issues with SANEF to say we actually have a problem if the media takes a stance that they are really opposition. And therefore, there's a lot of positive that is going on in the country. We would like to see a proper balance in that issue. And our point is it must be balanced. Even if it's the ANC doing it, they must not take it to be independent. You must be seen to be against the ANC. There's been a number of instances where you'll find that there's a negative story. When we go and give them the positive, the correct version of the thing, sometimes they don't even want to publish it. I mean, I can give you a number of examples. I don't want to take that. I'm just saying that the point for us is that it is not possible that everybody must subject themselves to transparent criticism from wherever, but then if you have to raise the issue with the media, then you are actually being hostile to the media. And it has to be understood that everybody needs to be, subjected to the same rules as anybody in the country.
All right, okay. We're going to go back to our floor and also you at home. And just to let you know that this program, this special broadcast, will continue until 9:30. So to give you more of an opportunity to engage with this particular discussion around the January 8th statement. And that's both on channel 404 and DSTV and also SABC2, just to make sure that you're not left behind. So start tweeting. We'll get your questions through to our panel and they can address some of your concerns and perhaps even listen to some of your suggestions around the January 8th statement. Let's go to table 20, where we'll find Cookie Makaba.
Thank you and good morning, Mr. President. All protocol observed. I'm just wondering, is there any procedural protection for small companies that are systematically being snuffed out by vindictive individuals in senior government positions? Thank you.
Okay, all right. Important question. Table number 16, Terry Bokopane. Terry Bokopane. Table 16.
Thank you, Mr. President, and the leadership of the ANC. My question relates to the issue of equitable share to provinces. My feeling is that this policy disenfranchise smaller provinces because when you look at the allocations, it perpetuates what apartheid was actually doing. So is there any way to review this kind of policy to ensure that provinces, like for instance the Northwest Province, which are mostly rural in their nature, get more allocation for development? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And then table 14, is it Koketso Muloko?
Good day. I'm just speaking on behalf of farmers because I'm a pig farmer and I also farm sheep here in the Northwest Province. My question to you, Mr. President, is in terms of your legacy regarding the rural economy and how you want to basically bolster it up, what do you think your legacy will be once your term of office is up regarding the rural economy and farmers, particularly like us in the Northwest now? We're really going through a very bad drought at the moment, and things are dire. People have had to cull their cattle, and times are really bad. And they're telling us that we're expecting rain in March, but apparently it's only now going to rain at the end of the year. So I just want to know, in terms of your legacy as someone who is from the rural areas, what do you see the rural areas of South Africa transforming into regarding the infrastructure outlay? Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, who can address the procedural protection of small business against vindictive people sitting in senior positions?
Minister must
Okay. Minister Zulu, apparently you've been mandated.
Now is your turn.
If we could get...
Now is your turn.
If we can get a microphone to Minister Due Zulu.
You answer.
Absolutely.
Well, it's a pity I had to stand up and ask a question, and now I'm being put on the spot. But there are regulation and there is law that relates to non-payment. There's a 30-day payment that has to be done by companies, by government itself. And by the way, let's not just think that this is an issue of government alone. It's an issue of both government and the private sector. In the Department of Small and Medium Enterprises, we have put this issue high on the agenda of Cabinet. And I can assure you that the institutional processes of ensuring that payment is done within 30 days is something that we are going to work very hard on. Again, it's not about the minister or the president. It's also about the people that sit behind the desk that have to make sure that all processes are done to make sure that people are paid within that period of 30 days. It's a problem, but we are prepared to deal with it. Thank you.
Oh, hang on, before you sit down, Minister. I think in addition to that, I guess, you know, when you're a small supplier, you don't have a powerful voice because you're scared to upset the person who has employed you or has given you business. And I think this speaks a little bit about this. How do I get protected from, if I speak up, if I try and create a report or something, that I'm actually going to be victimized and I'm not going to get any more business?
Well, I think that people really have to be bold, because if you are not going to do that, then it means we'll continuously perpetuate a situation where people have got the fear. And let us also understand that there are institutional processes, both of government, of legal and otherwise. And I know, as a Minister of Small Business Development, that many people give up too easily and too quickly. Unless we become bold as the small and medium enterprises, no matter where we are, and just hold the bull by its horns, because you can't keep on pointing a finger only to government and you don't want to take the responsibility of taking your problem to the next level. We can't resolve it unless small and medium enterprises, informal businesses, even come together to fight this scourge.
Okay. All right.
But one of the points, Peter, the questioner says some. He did not say that's what government does. I think if the questioner could see...
Okay. All right, once again, looks like that drop in transmission. It just seems to be a bit of a problem there, but we're keeping an eye on it, and we will get back to it as soon as we do rectify that problem. Well, it seems like so many people are really enjoying the broadcast this morning, posing as many questions as possible. So with this in mind, we've extended the broadcast to 9:30 here on Channel 404, as well as on SABC2. We're looking forward to being with you for those extended hours here on the program. So looking at some of the commentaries that are coming through, here's one from Caleb and Glovu saying, what program does the ANC have in place to deal with moral regeneration? Why churches are not put in on board? So there's a good question. Perhaps we can get that as well. Another one saying, I am immortal, that's the Twitter handle, saying, why do TVET college people pay 2,000 Rand plus fees in advance for practical skills training while they are unemployed with no bursaries? Well, that's a good question, but I also think it's a good one to ask our higher education minister. Here is another one, again, amazing, wanting religious institutions involved here. On morale, why can't the ANC involve religious institutions? What programs do the ANC have in this matter? Caleb and Lovu writing to us here at Morning Live SABC. Another question, Intercell Cash saying, can potential coloured and Indian industrialists like Intercell Cash apply for the industrial capacity building projects? There's a question that we can pose over there, and just some things that are going through here. Another one saying, can they please tell us what the government will be doing to assist this big movement called Operation Hydrate? I've seen some unbelievable things taking place with the Operation Hydrate, where water is being given to those places here in South Africa where things are just looking absolutely terrible, I must say. All right, well, it seems like we've got the comms back up with the broadcast coming out of the Northwest. But it was actually a good opportune moment, and Peter, I'm going to get your attention with this question that we'd like to pose as well. It came through yesterday, and we saw some comments coming from the DA opposition leader, Mmusi Maimane. And we'd love to just get a response, because I think it's the right opportunity to get a response. Mmusi Maimane is saying that the ruling party, or saying South Africa was entangled in racial tensions because the ANC of President Jacob Zuma has abandoned Nelson Mandela's vision of a non-racial country. Maimane believes the ANC is to blame for these racial tensions. The project of non-racism has been leaderless because the ANC has failed to lead it. Our country has lost track of reconciliation because Zuma doesn't know what to do. Those are the words and the views of Mmusi Maimane of the DA. And I suppose a response would be good at this stage. Peter, it's over to you and the rest of the panel.
Okay, Leanne, thank you very much indeed. Welcome back. So just before we lost our comms, a question was raised about the allocation of resources to provinces based on a particular formula, and there was a fear that the smaller provinces are going to get left behind as a result of their being small.
Yes, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Peter. I think the point that has been made, probably almost lost, the President was saying that when there are small businesses who have a difficulty with the payment and whatever treatment they are getting from the officials in government, they are free to write to the Minister of Small Business. But let's also add that it's also important to raise the complaint with the treasury of that particular province, with a particular department, the head of department, the MECs, even the mayors, because quite often the problem might be technical issues between the department and the supplier, but sometimes you get the ones that might want to take chances. If there's anyone who's probably trying to elicit a bribe or they are inefficient, then I think the small business must just do Operation Pimba, just report and make sure that this issue is taken up at the higher level so that at the end of the day, action can be taken on that. I think you will see how that was dealt with in the speech. The issue about the small provinces having less allocation is always a fear. I think every province always believes that they are entitled to a bigger share than they've already got, and that matter is mediated through what we call the Fiscal and Financial Commission, which is an independent structure that sits down and looks at the factors, the objective factors that should be used to determine the budget. So they look at the size of the population, the levels of poverty, the number of children in school, out of school. Then they look at the capacity, the GDP contribution. They look at all those issues. It balances up to end up giving people, the provinces, a relative weighting in terms of what they should be getting. It's not just on the basis of the population. It's a whole host of other factors. So it does work, and all the treasuries would sit together to argue about it. If there's any unfairness, then that issue can be dealt with at that level. But I think it's important to also realize that there are special projects that government at national level will drive in various areas which particularly have got a basis on which to grow the economy, and that happens irrespective of the size of the province. So, for example, Northern Cape has got the biggest investment on what is called the SKA, and the universities associated with it. all of these are issues that are coming not because of anything, but it's focused on that particular province as trying to build it. There's a whole energy build program that's there that's completely out of proportion to the size of the west of the Northern Cape. It's got more to do with certain features and the fact that certain aspects of our economy can be driven from that province. So I think there is a need to just assure all members that there is a very careful look in the distribution of finances.
All right, and then, Mr. President, your legacy with regards to the rural economy. Here's a farmer here in the Northwest who's struggling because of the drought.
No, thank you, Peter. Just to add a small thing on the question, the questioner who was saying some departments squeeze small ones. I would actually say if they could contact the minister personally here and raise those issues and indicate specifically who are these so that we could deal with the matter, in addition to the process of writing letters, etc. It's not Zuma legacy, it's government legacy. We established the Rural Development Department precisely to address that issue. It's an issue that is going to take a long time because the gap between the rural and the urban, including the small towns that have been going down, but also including how do we deal with the economy. For an example, at times we bring, which is appreciated, malls, to put a mall, big mall in a particular area to bring the kind of economic activities, which is absolutely good. But is there any relationship with the mall and the small businesses that have been there before? Are they participating in one form or the other? Are we trying to develop the small towns, so to speak? So it's an issue that needs all of us as well. How do we develop the small towns, the rural towns, etc.? It's a matter that needs all of us. It cannot be a matter of government only. So that the very existence of that department does do the job, because it has a lot of things to do. How much, for an example, the small business department comes into those small people who are in the rural areas, so that they are part of the development. There are areas that have succeeded. The very malls that I'm talking about have brought about change, because it means instead of people going to small towns somewhere to buy, they can buy here. But who owns the mall? I think that is the big issue. Is the mall being, in a sense, made to benefit the local people, or it has come to take the very money away from them? I think it's a question of how do we change that kind of economic activities so that this department helps the country to create that legacy, that then the legacy must remain all the time. Those are matters, I think, that must be discussed by the economic cluster. How do you relate to the rural development in terms of the economic development? It's a matter that we are battling with, we are handling, but I think it needs more participation, it needs more of the understanding of what do we mean by that. Do we empower the rural people, or do we come and make them still remain operating in the manner in which we've been operating? So it's an issue that needs all of us, that we should look at it between government and the rural people and business people as well. How do we empower the rural communities? I think it's a matter that needs all of us.
All right. Deputy SG, corruption and managing corruption, being careful with the money of the public is a theme that came through the January 8th statement as well. If you could just share a little bit on that for us.
I think we're very clear about that as the ANC. We're saying that the taxpayers' money is not your money. That money belongs to a program and must be spent on that program. And what we should differentiate is between myself as an individual and my own resources and that of the state. It's not the same thing. Secondly, we're very clear also that one of the issues, Peter, is the generalization of corruption. Doesn't help us. The January the 8th statement calls for naming and shaming. Very specifically, very directly, who is responsible, what did they do to you? It also means that business is going to have to say to itself, I won't do this crime. Because it starts with somebody making the offer and somebody being the recipient of that offer. So let's say to business, part of our compact must be that South Africa's business community says, no, you are not going to get a small little commission on the side. I'm going to put my proposal. I'm going to go to the tender boards. I'm not going to make a relationship with any special person so that I can be heard. I'm simply going to do it the correct and legal way. And the people who suffer most are the small to medium business enterprises. And we're saying to them in particular, don't offer the bribe. Let's fight the space of our right to engage in economic development. Because if we don't name and shame, the thieves simply own the day and the rest of the economy suffers. It's our responsibility to make our country an attractive investment destination, and we should all be part of that.
All right, thank you very much indeed. Mr. President, one other theme that's come through is what the DA leader, Mmusi Maimane, said about racial tensions. You know that they've been under pressure themselves with some of their members, racial tweets and so on and so forth. Mmusi Maimane says that the ANC of President Jacob Zuma has abandoned Nelson Mandela's vision of a non-racial party. The project of non-racialism has been leaderless because the ANC has failed to lead it. Our country has lost track of reconciliation because President Zuma doesn't know what to do. He's blaming the ANC for the challenges that we're seeing with racial tensions.
Come on. Please.
Get real.
It has been DA members who have been racist. Why must he blame me as the leader of DA? He's been called a monkey. Why can't he deal with it? Why is he blaming this Zuma? Come on. Please. Oh, yeah. It has been DA members. They had to expel members because they are racist. He is leading a party with racist members. Why must he blame the ANC? There's been no ANC member who has been racist. Please, come on.
No. I think we can use the term deflection. Take away the focus from real issues that confront them. And I think we should not be deflected. We must focus on what we should do. And they must do what they should do. Almost everybody who have said anything racist this year is traced back to them. They must deal with that issue. They must not deflect. I know that they're there to deal with a person who called every black person is a monkey. And I was saying they have my man as a leader. Basically saying my man is a monkey. That's basically what he was saying, that my man is a monkey. Now, instead of dealing with that issue, he went and do other things, reveal a billboard and other things so that the focus is shifted. He must not shift the focus. He must make his contribution in building a non-racial society by dealing with problems in the party. We will deal with ours. That is a commitment that we're making.
Can I just point out that President Zuma's cabinet is totally non-racial. That doesn't say the same for somewhere down the south, you know. It's not the same. Okay. One or two people don't make for a non-racial content. And honestly speaking, I think this is just taking a huge flyer that means nothing.
I think we must also say to Maimane, the ANC has championed the policy of non-racialism over the years. We can't be questioned by that party on that issue. But we must also say that the responsibility to build a non-racial South Africa does not just belong to the African National Congress. It is also DA's responsibility. So they must focus on what programs they need to do to re-educate their members, not to think that PW Botha must rise and come back and take over this country. They must look back at what it is they need to tell their members, that they must see human beings when they see South Africans. They must not start looking at whose fault it is, but they must know that we have been dealing with this issue over many years. There's a problem of apartheid. There's a problem of the psychology of a lot of people. They have to sort their members out. They've also got to give an example in the country that they're taking that matter seriously and not start, looking for scapegoats on a completely, sideway issue. They must know they have a responsibility, not just within the party. They must also reflect that as a policy of South Africa themselves.
Okay. Deputy President, I guess the other side of this coin is these tweets and these slurs are making people angry. They are very, very upset, and justifiably so. But I guess a message might be that we need to manage this anger.
Well, clearly the anger needs to be managed. And I think coming back to Maimane, I mean, he needs to be worried about the character of the DA, because what has been coming out of the DA through its members, through its leaders, is truly against the values of what South Africa stands for. Right from Kola Barnard saying that PW Botha must come back, and some of their leading members in the way that they have been participating in these tweets. We as the African National Congress will remain on message that South Africa should be a country which embraces non-racist values, which we have embraced right from 1912 when we were founded. And the DA is a new arriver on this, and instead of pointing fingers at the African National Congress and saying that we have abandoned Nelson Mandela's vision, why doesn't he then, as the TG says, lead it? Why does the DA not lead that? They cannot lead it because there is something fundamentally wrong in the DA itself in terms of the values that they themselves subscribe to. And they pay lip service to subscribing to non-racist values, but in the end, their own membership are the real perpetrators of racism in the way that they are showing to all South Africans through their tweets. That is what Maimane should be paying attention to. Leave Zuma alone. Zuma is leading this country to embrace the values of true non-racism. He must deal with his own problems.
Okay, all right. Let's return to our tables. Table 22. Kia, is that Malau?
Thank you. This country has been facing a very serious problem with water. In particularly the Northwest, we have seen a lot of strikes. Now, I would like to know, what is the ANC doing to address this problem? Thank you.
Okay, let's get Mackenzie Clapper, table 19 as well. Table 19, Mackenzie Clapper.
Thanks, Mr. President and the ANC leadership. Mine is based on the theme for this year that was received with so much jubilation at the stadium. The year of advancing people's power, local government is in your hands, ANC lives, ANC leads, ANC works. Now, as the people that has to popularize, has to implement, how do we unpack this theme to our constituencies, to our branches, and ordinary South African citizens? Thanks.
Okay. All right, so let's start with the first one. What is the ANC doing to address the water issue, particularly in the
we
Northwest?
allocated that question to the Minister of Water.
Ah,
this is
we're
part
glad
of
that you're here, Minister Malone.
Thank you very much. Peter, the national leadership, there's no free breakfast in the ANC. Just to indicate, yes, South Africa is amongst those countries worldwide that are now affected by the realities of climate change. What we're seeking to do is to adapt to those realities, given the fact that historically we are a water-scarce country. We are now focusing on interventions, short-term interventions, such as the promotion of the redistribution of water from one source to the other. Here in the Northwest, we know that the source of water supply is not necessarily from big rivers. It has been primarily from rivers and sources such as the dams that are also dependent on the supply that comes as far as Lesotho, which we are now also extending to Botswana. Three things that we have started to do. Together with the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Rural Development, we have started to interact with the three spheres, including the critical sectors, to find alternatives such as provision of alternative supply of feed to the agricultural sector. There's been a relief that has also been provided by National Treasury, particularly focusing on your emerging farmers, because there is also cooperation between the established farmers cooperatives supporting the emerging farmers. What has also been quite humbling about the Northwest is that there has also been a support that has come through from established white farmers, giving the necessary support to black emerging farmers through the Department of Agriculture. The national government has also provided water tanks that have come out much more handy, particularly to deal with domestic consumption of water. What is of importance now is effective management of water services by our municipalities, is the investment on the maintenance, but also it is my responsibility and you to save water and use water wisely. We're taking this challenge as another opportunity of dealing with our own habits of not only being dependent on on surface water, but focus also on groundwater, recycling water, and most importantly, being able to partner with the private sector that has also been quite handy to deal with these matters. In the nutshell, with the Northwest, all I can say is that we are on course dealing with this matter. It is a phenomenon that has engulfed all of us. For the long term, we are now extending the Lesotho Highlands project, not only to focus on Gauteng, but also to extend to Botswana, as it has been discussed and agreed upon with Botswana. And that would also help us to replenish the dams in the Northwest. We are putting before Cabinet in March a proposal to reclaim all the private dams that are in the white farms here in the Northwest, because those are the critical sources that we must release to our people. We do acknowledge that once upon a time there was a sunset clause. Our view is that the sun must rise. Those are resources that belong to the state. Thank you very much.
Okay. And then the other question is unpacking the theme that this is the year for advancing the people's power. Local government is in your hands. National Chairperson?
Peter, I was going to come to the point I'm going to make in response to the specific question you are raising, but also because I don't think my Mane's discussion, the discussion raised by his comment, is complete without us coming back to how we are choosing to approach this matter. We take responsibility as the ANC, and in the January 8th statement, actually give a line of march to our branches. We are very clear, and we are saying our branches are in our communities, and it's through them that we are going to generate discussions, appropriate engagements as South Africans about what makes us South Africans. We are going to not fall into the trap of saying we are racist. We are not. And history has proved that we are not racist. And our branches will lead those discussions in community meetings. And I think the theme of the year actually indicates this focus and this confidence and responsibility that will be seen in the way the branches of the African National Congress is going to ensure that debates come alive among South Africans. And those debates are not about us being diverted by a fringe lunatic that is still steeped in those kinds of racist past kinds of notions of how they led South Africa. But we are saying, as South Africans, we talk to one another. We find that which is strong among us as a collective, as a society.
Okay. All right. There's a question here, but it doesn't say who it is, so I'll just ask the question. Could we elaborate on the role that must be played by our women in this country in order to take forward the great successes that we've realized to date? Please, could you share those successes and what should be done further?
I think one of the
I don't want to just look at the women, actually. So, TG, let me ask you.
No, I think, firstly, we need to be saying to ourselves that the benefit from our democratic dispensation and the new constitution is the level at which the issue of gender parity has been elevated. So from levels of government where the ANC has insisted on a particular number or percentage of women who must be by right participate, by also looking at the area of how we're focused on the private sector, how, again, the issue of promotion of women emancipation has been taken seriously. I think we need to be able to say to ourselves that it's an approach, it's a culture, it's a policy that wherever we are, we should be advocates of women emancipation. Men should not feel any way uncomfortable with a leadership if the leader is a woman, and that going out to all our communities, starting from the levels of our branches, we have actually said we must look at how women should be a very significant part of the candidates that are being put forward, and also how many of them get appointed in responsible positions as mayors, in committees, in administration. And I think this is something that we must take on as a campaign of the entire country. It should not be something that only the ANC must be seen to be looking at. It must be something that even all the parties must embrace. Somebody spoke about something happening in the south of this from here that is not very pleasant. I think all parties must make the commitment to this. And I think it's also important to say it's not just about women at a particular level, it's from birth. As we bring up our children, the levels are very encouraging, the level of participation of girls. In fact, to see how from a history where in the past, women were left behind from education, today they are leading in terms of numbers, in terms of the university population and the performance. All of this is actually saying that the breadth of our country is embracing the talents that our country has. And I think this is something that we must focus on. Just one small portion also on the issue of racism. I think it's also important that there tends to be, there tends to be a problem of racism that's more associated with people who are either in higher level in society because of their positions or also in wealth. And I think that we need to be very serious about the comments that we've seen in the past few days, because people who have got those attitudes and are occupying various positions in banks, in industries, in various corporate bodies and so on, that means we need to be able to say, how do we make sure that they don't use those attitudes to further alienate those who are lower level, who are poor, and so on, because the desperation of the poor and the arrogance of the wealthy is something that really will create a real instability in the country.
All right.
I was just going to say, Peter, yes, on the women, I think it would be fair to indicate what was also in the statement. We really appreciated the steps and innovation taken by the ANC Women's League by opening up the young women's desk. I think that indicates exactly what we are asking. What is it that we can do? So important that all organizations should involve the young women while they are still young. Because the very fact that they have been conscientized at the level of the desk, it means they are being made to play a role to begin at the age in which they are, to begin to shape their own future in terms of leadership, etc. Can other organizations, different organizations really, ensure that they involve young women, seeing that they are a majority and they need therefore to participate consciously? It is not just a declaration or policy that works without people being conscientized. Even the workers, much as we say workers are a revolutionary class, but they need to be conscientized. If they are not conscientized, they can actually be something else. So it is important that young women are involved in the activities that are taking place. That's why we are very much happy that the ANC Women's League has taken that decision.
Okay. Deputy President, Fani Lilimo says, will our government continue with privatization in the future?
Let me quickly, before I answer that, share a moment which made me very proud when I was in South Sudan, when I informed them the success that we have made in terms of representation of women in ANC structures, that we have now reached 50%. They are still at the lower level, and they envied us a great deal, and they said that the ANC will forever stand out as a type of movement that they want to emulate. So they are learning from us as we empower women and as we empower the young women and the youth and all that. So that stood out as something that they would like to learn from. We've always said that we have embraced the approach of a mixed economy in terms of our economic management in our country. Some state resources, economic resources are owned by the state, and quite a lot are privatized. 70% of our economy is owned and driven by the private sector, and 30% would be what you call in public hands. Are we going to be privatizing anything moving forward? We've always said that on the basis of balance and proper evaluation, we will determine precisely how we should approach these matters. Right now, there are no plans of privatizing any of our state-owned resources, economic resources. They are being properly managed. Where we have faced challenges, we've addressed and continue to address those challenges. And we believe that those that are state-owned are owned by the state for a particular reason. They are owned by the state because they serve a particular purpose in relation to their economic contribution to our GDP, and also the products and services that they serve the people of South Africa with. So there are no plans to privatize anything.
Okay. I'm just going to fire some random questions that are coming from Twitter. These are concerns that our viewers have. JBM says, my wife was denied funding because she married a non-SA citizen. Is that not discrimination? What can be done about that? I don't know how we can... Is that the small business minister again?
It's a very general question.
He's saying his wife was denied funding because she married a non-SA citizen.
It's too broad.
Yeah.
You don't know whether it's funding as a small business, whether it was funding for school or it was.
Right.
I think what they should do is to direct a question with the specifics so that we can deal with it in that way. Otherwise, there isn't anywhere where you get discriminated on the basis of marrying a foreigner. There's no such.
All right.
South Africa belongs to all who live in it.
Okay.
That is
Whether
a
they are married to foreigners or what.
Nozipo Kulu says, what happened to the president's hotline?
Good question.
It is still working. It is still hot. Yeah, it is still working.
Okay.
Absolutely.
The president's hotline continues, and actually the presidency gives a report on the performance of the hotline. It continues to get a lot of inquiries, and many of them are diligently followed up and addressed. So that hotline continues. Whoever has asked the question can call that hotline now. They will get attention.
So what they must not be mistaken is the time it might take to verify some of the complaints, because the issues raised at the presidency must go to a department, and must go to a province, and might go to a municipality. Sometimes that lag might make people feel that there's not been a response, but it takes a while, but it's still working.
All right. Education's a big theme. Universities are opening shortly. You've managed to freeze the fees for 2016. But one of the expectations was free education at tertiary level. Is that something that's doable and realistic?
Well, I know that the Deputy Minister of Higher Education is here.
Okay, that's good.
He might want to say something, but I just wanted to say we addressed this question again in the statement, January 8th. It was important for us to do so. We said we now have the money to deal with the question of the fees, the zero rise. But I think it should also be remembered that we said we're establishing a committee when we had a meeting with the leaders of institutions of higher learning when they met with government. And that committee has produced some reports. When there was a protest, we also had a meeting, which was now with the leaders of the institutions of higher learning, as well as representatives of students coming from various organizations. The matters were discussed where we took a decision not to raise the fees. There were a lot of other matters that were raised by students. We then said we're going to establish a commission, which we'll be announcing very soon, that is going to be working. There is no issue that is not going to be attended to with regard to the issues relating to higher education. With regards to free education, I think it is important, as we have indicated, that that policy is a policy of the ANC. We established that policy in 1955 in the Freedom Charter, when we said doors of learning will be opened, and that there will be specific attention to bursaries, to poor education, to poor students or students who come from poor backgrounds. What I think we should not do is to believe that you could have every child not paying fees. It's a wrong notion, because you will not even be able to run schools or universities. What we have done, we have, in 2 conferences of the ANC, taken very serious resolutions on this matter, even went further than what the Freedom Charter says. We have not just ended there. We have actually implemented the issue. We have started, not at the tertiary level, below the tertiary level. There are schools that students pay no fees. Already, at that level, the education is free, so to speak, to people who matter. Because as I said in the interview yesterday, you can't say our children sitting here should be educated free of charge, because that will actually block the space of the poor kids who are out there. I think even if when people think about protesting, they must bear in mind that we cannot say we are all equal. There are those kids that cannot pay at all Others are orphans. Others come from very poor families. That's where we should be saying they should be educated free of charge. Those parents that could afford should continue paying. So the matter really must not be wrongly politicized. It's absolutely going to be important for us to look into that, because we may not have the resources to what we might end up doing. We might end up actually crowding out the poor people. So we must be very specific to those that have no means, no possibilities. That's what we've done. That's why we've increased the NSFAS, because we are dealing with those kind of students. That's what we are going to be doing. And I'm sure the Minister of Higher Education had in fact set up a committee to do the investigation on free education. There is a report. The other report that is going to come will be adding to that one. So I just want the candidate to know, we can't just protest and make that issue a slogan as if we just politicize it. We must be realistic about those people who cannot afford, and they are there. And we must look at it as we address the issue. And I'm not sure whether the Deputy Minister would want to say something.
What I'm going to do, Deputy Minister, with your permission, because I know we're going to have a conversation with you on Thursday with the Minister,
okay,
so we can spend more time unpacking that. But whilst we're on the youth, I think the ANC Youth League President is here, Colin Maine, if you could stand up. As the youth are the biggest players in our economy, and they're just not getting an opportunity at the moment because they don't have space. As the president of the Youth League, which is the majority party, represents most people in South Africa, you have a huge responsibility on your hands to take care of this constituency. What is the ANC Youth League going to do to manage the challenges of the youth and also contribute, I guess, to the local government elections that you hope to be winning in numbers?
Well, thank you, Peter. Let me premise my input by saying that we hope that the falling of the rand would not be attributed to the very successful rally we had as the ANC. And be told that the markets are not happy with that rally. And we must apologize. We're not going to do that. But what we've said, Peter, our ANC never disappoints us. The ANC has got very good policies to address challenges that face young people and all South Africans. But we've always said that where we lack, Comrade President of the ANC, is the implementation of our good policies of the ANC. So the January 8 has also captured very well that particular issue. With regard to the local government elections, immediately after our Congress, we have adopted what we called Save Our Cities and Metros campaign, because it is our view that some parties which we cannot mention here are targeting our big cities and metros. They don't care about a municipality in Greater Taung, but they're targeting our 6 metros. So the Youth League has started in Mangaung. From here, we'll be going to Nelson Mandela to assist the ANC to ensure that we win back those municipalities or those metros. And we want to say to young people in the country and in those cities in particular that the only hope of South Africa is the ANC. Yes, there may be challenges, but the African National Congress is the only organization that all of us as young people must invest our energies into, but we must also infuse some energy in the ANC. As you would see there, Peter, in the leadership, the sort of the older generation. So we would want to bring some young blood, but we've already started in the NGC, and we have been given a task by our mother body. Because the reality is that the population of the country, about 60% of it, is young people. So that must be reflected all over. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. All right, so there's a...
I thought we're young. I'm very young.
I definitely feel young. A couple of issues, just as we wrap up now. The Western Cape chair, his case, allegations that have been brought against him. I'm asking you as the SG of the party. What's the position at the moment? What is the party, how is it dealing with the issue?
No, well, from the weekend, you are describing correctly when you say there are allegations. And the most obvious thing to do is to get facts. Once you get facts, you decide what to do. Without facts, speculation, media, you can, on your feet, make a determination. It is the worst thing you can do if you are leading an organization.
Okay. All right. And then, Mr. President, and I'm sure this question keeps coming up, but maybe, hopefully, on this platform, people will hear it and you'll put it to bed once and for all. Are you friends with the Guptas? Are the Guptas influencing you in running the government?
No. They are not influencing me. I know the Guptas. My son is partner with them. He did not start as a partner. He started working with them. He's an ICT specialist. He worked in that, what you call a company, and left and tried to start business. Later on his own, went back, discussed with them, agreed to form a company. He's working with them. I think what has been sticking out is that Zuma's son is working with the Guptas. He is a businessman, he's doing his business. I don't direct my children where to go, where not to go. So the fact that Guptas have been discussed, whatever happens, it is the Guptas. I think people just are politicizing something. Guptas have been friends with many people in this country, including heads of states. I'm not the first one. I think it is just that anything that is Zuma, even if somebody these days loses a shoelace, you say it's because of Zuma. That's just the issue. There's no problem with that one. Absolutely no problem.
All right. We've run out of time, but perhaps if you could just give us maybe a closing thought that South Africans can take away. January 8th statement is a call to the party, but it does affect the country in general. Maybe just a closing thought for all South Africans and people watching from across the continent as what's come out after this weekend.
I think, firstly, the ANC does not regard itself as living on its own or for its own sake. It was established by the people of this country. It therefore serves the people of this country. The January 8th statement, as you would realize, the bulk of it addresses the national issues, calling the people to unite, calling business to participate, dealing with the issue of racism. We don't need it, we need to work together. That addresses the country. That addresses also the issues outside of the country. There is a specific section that deals with the ANC as the marching orders to the membership, which indicates that the entire statement, 3/4 of it, is for all the people. And I think people must take our statement and read it. They will find that it does resonate with all citizens of this country. What we need to do as the citizen of this country, we need to be patriotic, we need to promote the goodness of our country, we need to work, we need to do everything to ensure that South Africa succeeds. That is the word to all South Africans. Business must invest because we have clearer policies. We have a plan for all of us. Let us implement the plan, all of us. It's not just for government only. But once more, as a country, let us unite. Let us fight whatever are obstacles together. That's what the ANC says. We are going for elections this year. Let us go to the elections as Democrats. Let us not fight about it. Let us accept those who win so that democracy thrives in the country. We are a country that many people envy. I think we should also begin to envy what South Africa has done and to promote our democracy. Promote our democracy by doing the right thing. That includes the media, which has been the subject of discussion as well. Promote this country. Sell this country positively because people love it and we love ourselves. We are a rainbow nation. Let us make this rainbow work very well. That is a word from us to all South Africans to say, let us be together. Let us create a situation where we all participate in the reconstruction of our country. It is a good country. It's a country that has made progress. It is us who can make it even much better, all of us, irrespective of whether we are religious or political or whatever. Let us work together to make South Africa win.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. President. Ladies and gentlemen, on your behalf, I'd just like to say thanks to our top six, His Excellency President Jacob Zuma, President of the ANC. Thank you very much indeed. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, thank you so much indeed. National Chairperson Baleka Mbete, Secretary General Gwede Mantashe, Deputy Secretary General Jesse Duarte, and Treasurer General Dr. Zweli Mkhize. Thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us and giving us some guidance of what's come out of the January 8th statement. Thank you so much indeed. And to you at home, thank you for participating and watching. Our next business briefing will be on Thursday, and we'll be discussing higher education with the Minister and the Deputy Minister. Make that a date. It's a very important issue, so that's something to look out for on Thursday. And to our audience here, thank you all very much indeed. Have a great day, everybody. Happy New Year and happy birthday. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you very, very much there to Peter and, of course, the top six of the ANC for your time and long extended broadcast of Morning Live here on Channel 404 and SABC 2. We leave you with some sad news, I have to tell you. If you are a rock fan, I suppose the legend of rock has died. David Bowie passing away at the age of 69. A statement just being released by his family and saying that his son saying David Bowie died peacefully today, surrounded by his family after a courageous 18-month battle with cancer. Let's leave you with the sounds of David Bowie. God bless you all. Bye-bye.